Hey guys, welcome back to today's video, and we're going to be talking about Hitler, appeasement, and start of World War II. So, going through today's content, Hitler's foreign policy aims, Hitler challenging the Treaty of Versailles, the appeasement policy, advantages and disadvantages of it, the Munich Conference, the Nazi-Soviet Pact, Hitler's and Stalin's motives, and how World War II started. So Hitler's foreign policy aims. So there were three main ones. So the first one was to abolish the Treaty of Versailles. He and many Germans thought it was unfair. It was just basically made to destroy Germany. Number two, expand German territory. He wanted all German-speaking countries to be united as one, so as the Reich or the German Empire. And he also wanted more living space for the expanding German population. Number three, defeat communism. So Hitler hated the Bolsheviks as he thought they were partly responsible for Germany's defeat in World War One, and not really, but it did cause Germany to be tired in World War One because it was basically battling a two-front war for like probably the first half of the war. And he thought that the Bolsheviks planned to take over Germany, so he obviously hated them. This is a book of Hitler, so called the Mein Kampf or My Struggle. Here he talks about his personal opinions on World War One and his foreign policy aims. And Hitler challenging the Treaty of Versailles. So here's a timeline of what he did. So in 1934, there was an Anschluss attempt. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anschluss. It's basically an alliance between Austria, Hungary, and Germany, okay, or Austrian this time, this case. So the Austrian Nazis, which were Austrian who supported Nazis, and Germany tried to stage an uprising and encourage people to want Anschluss. Yeah, most likely by force. They stormed troops over Austria and they threatened people. Okay, if you don't want Anschluss, then you're gonna get beaten up. And well, Mussolini knew about this and he was extremely angry. So he wanted Hitler to retreat. He gave Hitler a warning. And yeah, Hitler did because he didn't want to anger Mussolini. In 1935, the Tsar plebiscite happened. So Saarland was mandated to Britain and France for 15 years for mining coal. But, Hitler wanted Saarland back. So a plebiscite was held. 98% of the people in Saarland voted and 90% agreed to join. Well, yes, Germany was under suspicion of violent influence, so they probably threatened the people in Saar. Okay, so in 1935 and 1936, we have German rearmament and conscription. So this was one of the boldest moves in Hitler's career, where he started rearmament in secret and then later made it public when he introduced conscription in 1935. Well, Britain and France was not particularly happy about this. Well, Britain was rather chill though and signed an Anglo-German naval agreement with treaties stating that, well, your navy can only be 35% of my navy. And France did protest, but it did nothing after that. Okay, it didn't threaten Britain, it didn't threaten Germany to go to war. It just protested, and Hitler ignored it. And in 1936, again, the remilitarization of Rhineland. And Hitler took advantage of the Abyssinia confusion, well, the Abyssinia crisis, which I covered in another video, confusion, and marched troops into Rhineland. And essentially, Britain and France did protest, but that was all. Okay, similarly to the German rearmament and conscription in 1935, they did nothing except for protest, and Hitler again ignored them. So, what was appeasement? Okay, so appeasement was a policy used by Britain and France mainly, or the Allied country. They try to settle international disputes peacefully, okay, by agreeing to terms and demands through negotiations. Um, it was based on optimistic assumptions that the demanders are reasonable and fear conflicts. So basically, they believed that the demander, in this case Hitler, would be reasonable. He wouldn't attack other people. That he would just let's say remilitarize his Rhineland because, well, it was part of Germany before the Treaty of Versailles, and they thought that Germany, Hitler was afraid of another war, so he didn't want to risk doing anything to anger Britain, which proved to be absolutely wrong, and we're going to get to that in a few minutes. So the advantages of appeasement, okay, so there were plenty of them. So Hitler stands up against communism. As you guys can see, Britain and France didn't like communism, and Hitler absolutely hated communism. So they had something in common there. So USA won't support the Allies if they go to war again. USA swore that they wouldn't want to get themselves involved in another international conflict, international war, because they saw how terrifying it was. So losing USA would be crucial because, I mean, they're not going to supply them with weapons and ammunitions either. So the Treaty of Versailles was unfair, okay? And Hitler's action was thought to be justified. Like, Rhineland was part of Germany, and the Treaty of Versailles was too harsh, and they believed that Hitler was kind of reasonable in trying to take the Rhineland back because it was it was Germans' land, and countries were not ready for war. Like, they had suffered World War I, they had went through the Great Depression, the economy was depleted, they had no troops, they had no manpower. Okay, and they were obviously must not repeat World War I. They were afraid of it, didn't want to lose that many people anymore. So, like, they were traumatized by the casualties. And yes, of course, countries were more focused about their own economic problems than worrying about something like war, like especially after the Great Depression hit. Yeah, it basically wrecked everyone's economy, and they wanted to build it back up as soon as possible. So the disadvantages of appeasement. So first one, it placed too much trust in Hitler, okay? And you guys would see overall Hitler would then, lie back, turn against his words, and yeah, the Allied was suffered from this, okay, because Hitler went back on his word. It encouraged Hitler to be aggressive because his demands were met so easily, okay? So he said, "Oh, I want to remilitarize Rhineland. I wanted Saarland back. I wanted to unite with Austria." And the League of Nations basically did nothing. So Hitler was encouraged by this to act more aggressively. It allowed Germany to grow too strong because all that rearmament and recovering territories had built up the German's army, while Britain and France and essentially other allied countries did nothing but try to improve their economic problems, include, improve the economy, and it might provoke the USSR, okay? Because yes, yeah, as I already said earlier, Britain and France didn't like communism, and Germany doesn't like communism either, didn't like communism either, and they would do nothing to stop Germany from invading the Soviet Union. Well, they would probably be in support of Hitler invading the Soviet Union. So this might provoke the Soviet Union, and of course, they would go against Britain and France. So the Munich Conference, which was essentially the high point of appeasement policy. Okay, this were Hitler's most aggressive thing to decide, his most aggressive actions. Okay, so Hitler wanted the Sudetenland. Okay, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Sudetenland, from Czechoslovakia, and the Allies gave in. After the conference where Britain, Italy, France, and Germany attended, the crucial part was that the Soviet Union was left out, okay, and the Czechoslovakia essentially they had no say in their own country's land for whatever reason. But to be fair, though, Czechoslovakia was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was really chummy with Germany back then. Okay, yeah, Slovakia had to obey decisions from the Munich Conference because they could not go against Germany on their own. And yeah, they felt betrayed by France for not upholding the Little Entente agreement. And the League of Nations did nothing to help. So basically, there was a policy called collective security in another video, which I would be covering, which basically says, okay, so if you're the aggressor, the rest all the members of the League of Nations would go against you. But it did nothing really, because Germany was not in the League of Nations, so they could do nothing. It didn't have to follow the League of Nations rule, and yeah, Britain and France were too self-interest to do anything about it. Okay, so here's a cartoon of the Munich Agreement. So, appeasement policy with Neville Chamberlain, British Prime Minister, and the rest of Europe. So his policy was to appease Hitler, as you can see here, as a child and the Nazi symbol. So basically, he gave Hitler toys, he gave Hitler's good stuff to drink, to eat, hoping that would calm Hitler down. Okay, hoping he would do nothing else. He would not start an uprising. So Europe was just waiting in expectation at Chamberlain's actions. Okay, he was the main decision maker. So he decided to use the appeasement policy on Hitler. So, okay, so the Nazi Soviet Pact. Okay, so it was, what is it? Okay, so it was also called the Molotov Ribbentrop Pact, or the Hitler Stalin Pact. Well, it was a treaty, or an agreement between Germany and the Soviet Union to not take military actions against each other for the next 10 years. Okay, so there was also a secret agreement of partition of Poland, so basically divide Poland up after it has been invaded by Germany and the Soviet Union. So Germany would get everything west of Poland, and the USSR would get everything east. So basically, Poland was no more. There would half of it would belong to Germany, and half of it would belong to the USSR. So what was Hitler's motives in the Nazi Soviet pact? So he didn't want a two front war like in World War I. He knew that World War II was coming up, and he didn't want to fight Russia on the Eastern Front and the Allies on the Western Front like it did in World War I, which did really tire Germany out and basically led onto its defeat. Hitler also didn't want the USSR to intervene in the invasion of Poland because he just wanted to focus all his troops on the invasion of Poland, and he wanted to neutralize the French Soviet treaty. So he wanted to reduce the amount of possible future enemies. So if Hitler didn't sign this treaty with Stalin, the French Soviet treaty would be upheld, and basically the USSR would be on the Allied side. So he didn't want to fight again. He didn't want to fight two front war. What was Stalin's motive? Okay, there were a lot more. So first of all, Stalin didn't trust France and its strengths. So from the French-Soviet treaty, he didn't trust France in protecting his country at all, because he doubted its strength. Stalin thought that Britain and France didn't trust him because he wasn't invited to the Munich Conference. Okay, so he started doubting them from there on. He wanted to avoid war with Hitler at all costs because obviously in his Mein Kampf book he expressed his disgust, his hatred towards the Soviet Union and its communism. Okay, so Stalin was also disappointed in the League of Nations after witnessing its failures and weaknesses, because it failed to intervene in the Abyssinian crisis and the Manchuria crisis, which I'll be talking again in another video. And yeah, he didn't trust collective security and felt safer on Germany's side. Well, not essentially on Germany's side, but he didn't want Germany to attack him. It also gave time for the Soviet Union to strengthen its army to prepare for a possible war, or probably to retaliate against Germany later on. And yeah, Britain and France guaranteed to protect Poland, which the USSR loved a piece from it. They wanted part of Poland, and he didn't like France and Britain protecting it at all. Yeah. So how World War II started. So we did go back all the way to March 1939, where Hitler tried to claim the German states. Okay, so Danzig was a German state, but so it belonged to the Polish corridors, which was separated off in the Treaty of Versailles, and basically belonged to Poland now. And Hitler wanted Danzig back. Okay, he wanted the state back, but Poland refused. So in March Britain and France guaranteed to defend Poland, or the Anglo-French support when Hitler threatened Poland. Again, in April, Hitler tried to pressure Poland again, saying, "Oh, okay, Poland's Danzig will still be mine, and you're not going to do anything about it." Well, again, obviously, Poland refused this, and Germany started acting. Okay, so Germany started their plan of retaking Danzig. So they started accusing Polish of persecuting the German minority in Danzig or in Poland, so they could have a just cause in invading Poland later on. And in October, oh no, in August, sorry, August 1939, the Nazi-Soviet Pact was signed, which shocked the entire world, and they didn't know how to respond to this. And just a month later, Hitler invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war on Germany, and World War II basically started. Yeah, so thank you for listening in today's video, and we're gonna be seeing you guys in another video.